Something I recently found out that I've been obsessed with is that the Quran and Islam has been way ahead of the curve when it comes to mutual aid, solidarity economies, welfare, universal basic income, and redistribution of wealth. So in the Quran, it specifically says that Muslims who meet a specific threshold of wealth and have the ability to do so need to give of what they have, whether that's their money, their resources, their connections, or their time, but most importantly, their money, in order for the overall welfare of society. So the very first time that the concept of zakat, or this kind of giving, alms giving, is mentioned in the Quran is super early. It's in the second chapter, basically the first page of most Qurans you will open, while the believer, who constitutes a believer, is being defined. So verse 2-3 says, those who believe implicitly, which is one of the conditions, those who attend to their duties, who willingly expend whatever we have on them bestowed. Those who give of what they have. And then it shows up over and over again, specifically defining the categories of the people who this money should be given to. So it says charities, which is mistranslated. Zakat is more like mutual aid or almsgiving, like a tax for the state that is then redistributed to the people. Charities are only for the poor and needy and the workers who administer them, and those whose hearts have been reconciled, and those in bondage, and those in debt, and on the cause of God, and for the wayfarer as an ordinance of God. Here's another verse that supports this. This goes back to Surah Baqarah 283. We took the promise of the children of Israel, do not worship anything but God, and be good to parents, relatives, orphans, and the poor, and speak nicely to people, and pray regularly, and give alms, which is the same word as zakat. Then you reneged, except a few of you, leaving it unfulfilled. So here it's giving it as a warning, but again, it's included in one of the things that a believer must do, and that's part of our promise to God. So let's talk about the categories of who is entitled to these welfare payments, or essentially like a form of social security. The first category is the poor, which according to one school of thought in Islam, the Maliki school, which governed North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Spain for a time, was anyone who isn't able to take care of their basic needs for a year. So doesn't have enough property or resources to take care of their basic needs for a full year. Currently in the United States, 37% of Americans can't even afford a $400 emergency payment. So just think about that, how the poor were defined as what we would constitute people of means today. So it almost turns into kind of like a universal basic income more than it is just a payment for redistribution of wealth, or seen as like mutual aid. The second category are the needy, which in the time of Caliph Umar were defined pretty broadly. So the disabled, the elderly, widows and orphans, and then anyone who had fought in wars, so soldiers and veterans. And the needy also constituted young mothers and families, so these payments also went towards early childcare for families. The next category is those who are held captive. So we can think of hostages, right? For example, people who are being taken from ICE. So in order to help liberate those people and allow them to be able to get out of captivity, we can also think of jail bonds and ways to bail out folks who are being held in jail either for unjust or petty crimes, or who are being held for protesting in unjust government systems, or for any other reason. So in order to help people get out of captivity, that was one of the categories that was entitled to these payments. Then we have those in debt. So today in America, such a large percentage of us, including me, have inordinate student debt. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. Those people, along with those with medical debt, any kind of victims of predatory lending, would all be subject to receiving these payments. The last category is the wayfarer, the stranded traveler, or the immigrant. So anyone who's coming into your country and needs support, anyone who is stuck in a place that is unfamiliar to them and needs support, or just people who are migrating or in exile or seeking asylum. Oh wait, I forgot one and a half categories. So obviously those who are administering these funds are entitled to these payments because they need to actually make a living. And then the other category is those whose hearts have been reconciled. So they can be seen as people who maybe went through a criminal justice rehabilitation system, or those who were previously not in the path of God, but have now aligned themselves with the path of God. I'm personally obsessed with this whole idea because it changes the conception of the obligation of those who have means from giving charity, which is like a power dynamic based relationship, right? Like you are someone who has, and you're being so kind and compassionate to give to someone who does not have. It changes it from that to something like mutual aid, which is that first of all, it is the right of the poor. In the Quran, it says it's the right of the poor to receive this aid, and the right of the needy. And secondly, it is more of a solidarity economy where people are looking out for each other, because there's this inherent understanding that you may be someone of means today, but that could change overnight, right? Your house might burn down, and tomorrow you may not have a place to live. But if you have a system where it's not power dynamic based and it's not merit based, and there's an understanding that there are certain factors like nature that are completely outside of our control, or the cycles of life and civilization, then we are constantly always looking out for each other through these systems of welfare and mutual aid.